Welcome to the third video in the ProSave tutorial series. The easiest way to load game data at the start of a scene is to just add GameLoader to the scene. Add a GameLoader component to the game data object. GameLoader is responsible for two important jobs. First, it will call for data to be loaded from the drive. Second, it will call for late initialize to begin when loading is completed. Without GameLoader, late initialization will not occur unless you call for it somewhere with the ProSaver static class in some other script. Now, if you examine the GameLoader in the inspector, you will see two exposed fields, load data when and late initialize. Load data when controls under what circumstances loads are attempted. If never is selected, loading will never be attempted, and if always is selected, it will begin whenever the scene starts. But by default, it is set to load not yet attempted, which means that a load will be attempted at the start of the scene if at no point since the booting up of the game a load has been attempted. A load attempt is any time the game has checked the hard drive for load data, whether or not it finds any. Load not yet attempted is often the best setting because it generally means the game will only load data once, the first time it is needed, and not attempt to load it again if the player reloads the scene for some reason, which would at best be an unnecessary drag of resources and could potentially overwrite data changes that have been made since the gameplay started. The final option is load not yet successful. This means that a load will be attempted even if one has been attempted before, if those previous attempts failed, that is, they did not find any data to load. Leave load data when set to load not yet attempted. Below load data when, you will see a toggle called late initialize. Toggling this off will prevent late initialize from being called at all in the scene. Obviously, we want to leave this set to true. Let's test the game. Press the play button. The agility, health, intelligence, and strength panels should spawn, but otherwise things should largely look the same. If, however, you fill in the name input, you should see the name update. If you press the plus buttons next to the stat numbers should update, and if you press the learn ability buttons, the abilities list should add new random abilities. Now, turn off play mode and turn it back on. The game should look like you left it, with all of your modifications loaded to the screen. It is, however, possible that there was a split second where the menu was visible but the data was incorrect, the ability is not yet listed, and the stats set to 0. This is because initialize is called before late initialize, obviously. In this particular example, it is not especially consequential, but in actual games, we often want to hide the visuals of the scene behind a loading screen while the game is out of state. Fortunately, this is incredibly easy with ProSave. Create a new panel and name it Loading Screen. Make sure it is lower on the hierarchy than UI panel. Change the color to gray and the color alpha to 1. Add text TMP game object as a child in the loading screen. Name the object loading text and set the text input to loading. Adjust the alignment so the text is centered. Next, add an image as a child object of the loading screen and name it loading bar. Set its height to 50 and stretch it so that it is roughly the length of the screen. Anchor it to the left side of the screen. Finally, move both the bar and loading text down toward the bottom of the screen, and make sure both are visually readable. Obviously, this is a rough prototype of a loading screen, but it will be sufficient to demonstrate how a loading screen works. Create a new script called Loading Screen Manager. Add using ProTools.Saver, using TMPro, using UnityEngine.UI, using ProTools.Extensions, and using System.Link to the top of the script. Change the mono behavior to a pro-mono behavior. Delete the start method and change the update to fixed update. Add a public TMP text field called loading text and a public image called loading bar. Add a private bool field called loading finished. Add public override void awake and make sure not to delete base awake. Finally, add public override void complete scene prep. In the awake function below base awake, add the code gameObject.setActive true. In complete scene prep, add the code loading finished equals true. Next line, gameObject.setActive false. Complete scene prep is called at the very end of late initialize. It is thus a great place to turn off loading screens and to end any scene setup processes that are still going on. Now, add a private string list field called loading test states and add loading, loading dot, and loading ... to the directory. Additionally, add a private int field called text index. In the fixed update loop, add the following code. If not loading finished, inside the if brackets, if text index equals loading text states dot index of loading text states dot last. Next line, text indexed equals 0, else text indexed plus plus. Skip 2 lines. Loading text dot text equals loading text states dot text indexed. Skip a line. Float percent equals cast float ProSaver dot scene ready percentage. Next line, loading bar dot game object dot set local scale new vector 3 percent 1 1. This code first checks to see if loading is finished, and if it is not, proceeds to update loading text and the loading bar. The loading text rotates between different text states. The bar has its X scale adjusted to match the percent of the combined initialization and late initialization percent, which is accessed easily from ProSaver.SceneReadyPercentage. Attach the loading screen manager to the loading screen game object. Turn off the include in initialization and include in late initialization, since we aren't using these functions here, but set true the call complete scene. Drag loading text into the loading text slot and loading bar into the loading bar slot. If you hit the play button, you will see the loading screen boot for a split second before disappearing. Loading this scene is incredibly quick, both because ProSaver is so efficient and because this is a non-expensive scene. Hit the pause button and then hit play. If you pan through the updates, you will see the loading text and loading image update with each frame until the loading is completed. This ends our tutorial on ProSaver. We hope you found this tutorial useful and will make many great games with the ProSaver system.